one that sets the center. We've seen drawing by and a version of that, two versions of that. Okay. Understand that within the system there are also options for when you lose the bind, where you find the conflict. Davis cuts again, and I lose the bind, I'm late. Fine. Because the other thing that the sword in one hand does is it sort of begs you to move to straddle. Oh look. Okay, and I have access to all of this. Now, we see that less on horseback, obviously, because I don't have access to Vader's center line. There's this giant horse in the way. But we do have versions of losing the parry. If you shoot, for instance, and I reverse it, and I cut up, and I lose this, well, neither can I cut through his outside line, nor can I go for the throw. If I continue to fold this parry as a hanging parry, as I demonstrated last night, I still eat it. Okay? But I have lost the bind, so this is still technically mano parry. I still have access here, even on horseback. A couple of things that can be done here. First of all, it's a great first master dagger play. But he's strapped to his horse. And off he goes. Or, if there's time for it. So we have versions of things that can be done. Any of the permutations of win, lose, or draw. We also have ways of moving in with the sword in one hand to approximate all the salient dagger matters. If he thrusts, we do this and I pass all the way through, we can still do the outside. That's technically a Morozzo dagger. But it shows up in the mounted section, as I showed you all last night, or riding up behind. The mechanic is the same as doing it in front. So we can approximate all these things. And what was it that I just did to accomplish that? We've seen heel thrust again. We've seen this. What's this? If I cut all the way toward the barrel, what do I get?
Romper.
Okay. So that's in the system too. Is it starting to gel? How related everything is? As you move forward in your training and as you start to work on your skills tests and all that, you're going to start to see how explicit this is. But my original primary understanding of this material actually came from working with the mounted combat plays. Because I could extrapolate that and find the mechanics within the system that were coherent to the foot fight. Because more often than not, I have to teach someone who's never going to see a horse why those plays are important. So now you're all going to go back and you're going to read the last folia of Il Fior di Battaglia and say, oh my goodness, it's all in there. Yes. Sure. Now, a couple of questions have been asked. What happens when you thrust and your blade sticks in your opponent? You are riding by him. And it's a very good question. You have a couple of options. From here, he rides on by. By the time I get to here, I've got a pretty good game. Okay. And it can be as simple as this. Okay. It might require me to abandon my weapon. I mean, that's not ideal, obviously, because now I'm riding around the battlefield, presumably having already lost my lance. But Greg brought up a really interesting point. Why might Master Fiore show us here so often on horseback? Well, what do we talk about first when we made that very first play? Where is the sword actually? Okay. So if Davis rides at me with a lance, and I set this aside, after having lost my lance, this is coming out of the scabbard to make sure that I can still make the stub. So there's the descending there. Start thinking about how these things would have been applied. You can start to see why they might have been the way they were. The final thing I want to say, and I just touched on this last night, is that another reason that this is all coherent within the system is that it fits all of Master Fiore's criteria for where and how you use this. If you're riding around on the battlefield with a lance on a destrier, you probably are also wearing armor. And so all of these plays with the sword in one hand can be done in a very similar fashion in the sword and armor section, where the universal parry can be done this way, whether or not it's in arms. Attacks and defenses that are made to defeat armor, do. Everything we do within this section, both on horseback and on foot, can be used against an armored person as well. Any other questions?
I think it's worth noting too that when you get to some of the Iberians are the people who really wrote all the equestrian material for us, because they're big equestrian culture. One thing that you see is that the list of weapons they expect a horseman to carry by the mid-1400s is profound. He has a lance. Sometimes he has two swords. He has a war hammer with him. And why? Because he seems to just keep going through his weapons as he goes by. Oh, there went the sword. Now it's time to the war hammer. This will just open any can I have into encounter. So the weapons also get less subtle as they go.
Too tired to hold on to my sword. Better have a less fun.
And no policy talks about you have a sword, your headstock, your axe, your dagger.